Everybody, welcome back to 2 Hours on a Sunday. I'm Brian.
I'm Nick.
I'm Ian.
And today we have all witnessed Across the Spider-Verse, and we're going to break the movie down
Yay.
and talk about how we feel, the possibility in the third movie, and what we loved comparing it to the first movie. So Nick and Ian, what would you guys give the movie out of 10?
I would say maybe an 8.1. I thought it was really, really good. I think this was a better movie than the first, but I might have enjoyed the first so much more just because it was such a breath of fresh air sort of thing. And I really liked the personality of the characters, and they were had a little more chance to be charming in the first one because it was like the introduction. But aside from those, a couple of specific things, I think this one was visually better. The plot was better. It was awesome. It was really, really well thought out. I can't wait to see where they go with the rest of it because it's the cliffhanger was, yeah.
I'm very close to Ian's score there. I would definitely give it an 8 out of 10. Visuals were absolutely stunning. I couldn't get over it the entire time. I want to go see it again. Apparently, I had the seats that rumbled. I didn't know that.
Oh, you guys went
D-box.
It kind of scared me. It scared me because I was like, oh, there's something under me. But yeah, I thought it was a good second part of this, like a good story addition to what we have already with Into the Spider-Verse. Building on each of the characters I thought was really nice. The story was, I think, better, but I really did enjoy that first one. It was give you a little smack. This is animation now, boys and girls.
I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. And I've seen this movie twice, and both of you know how my first experience went.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dive too into it because it was a very negative experience, and I came out of it not really enjoying the movie at all. But it had nothing to do with the movie itself. It had to do with my theater and who was in the theater and the atmosphere that kind of brought down my experience. But seeing it a second time in AVX, we made the extra trip to go to that theater. And I came out of it, I was like, this is how I should have felt the first time I saw this. And it was such a better experience. There were still a couple things that irked me. I'm going to say one right now. I was so disappointed with Scarlet Spider.
Yeah. It's a pretty laser focused thing for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to him the most. And when I heard the rumors that Andy Samberg was going to be Scarlet Spider, I was like, okay, this could be good or it could be really bad. And anytime he wasn't speaking, he looked phenomenal.
Yep.
But I just didn't I was like, we already got Peter B in the first movie, that mopey, depressed, but it worked because he was bouncing off Miles, so it worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
But to have him so his first appearance, he was moping in a corner. I'm like, I already hate it. But seeing it a second time, it grew on me. So I didn't hate it as much as the first time. But I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to say the visuals were incredible. But sometimes I think they went a little too much.
Yeah.
It was overstimulating. And the scene, I think Gwen's world had the most complications for me visually. Because they were trying to do so much, and it had to do with the ending scene where she was talking to her father. The backgrounds just kept changing. I'm like, just stick with the blues and the pinks.
Yeah.
It was a lot to look at, and I was like, okay, I understand you can do this, but you don't have to do. Yeah, but should you?
I totally agree with that. I feel like the change in conversation that she had with her dad probably could have gone with a color swap.
Mm-hmm.
Like it did at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought I was understanding their color choices after the first conversation where it was her mood was changing it, but then it was just kind of going all over the place. I'm like, no, I don't know what they're going for. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you guys. The story, I feel, because after I saw it the first time, I watched the first one again. I took a day break. I watched the first one because I loved the first movie and how simple and charming it is. And I think that has to do with how innocent Miles is in the first movie and how clumsy and the comedic relief of, him and his uncle. I love his uncle in the first movie and their relationship and him and Peter B. This movie had, I feel, a more in-depth story, whereas the first one was more simple. But I do agree after seeing it the second time that everything just kind of opened up and I was like, this story is actually amazing. And I loved the ending. Whereas the first time I was watching it, because I knew it was a cliffhanger, I was like, okay, this is the ending. Okay, no, this is the ending. I kept waiting for the ending and it never happened.
It's like, when is it gonna, is it now? Is it now? Is it now? And then, yeah, you can't enjoy it.
Yeah. But seeing it the second time that was supposed to be the ending. Like it felt like that should have been the ending. Aside from that, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Visually, also one other negative, the soundtrack wasn't as good.
It wasn't as standout as the first one.
It wasn't. It was still good. It just didn't have anything that really popped and like really stuck with you. And like there was like a moment you could point to as like, oh yeah, like that part where "What's Up, Danger" kicks in. Like it didn't have those like moments that really got stuck in your head. It was fine. It was good all throughout. It just didn't have that like that extra kick.
It vibed well with the movie and like the setting and like all the score was really good.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you guys said, there wasn't any like "What's Up, Dangers" or like the songs in the beginning of the first movie when Miles, there was no sunflower, like his uncle bopping the music in his room. Like there's nothing that was like get you pumping. It was all like subtly tossed in there to like create the vibe of the film.
Honestly, my favorite part of the entire movie was the opening whole bit with Gwen. Like her intro to that movie, I was just like, this is already like when the title came up, I was like, I'm good. I'm good with this movie now. I could go home. Like I was so satisfied with her introduction in the movie, the dynamic with her father, just like her going through the city, you getting her perspective. It was just like that was so fulfilling to me. That was like, yep, that's great.
The only thing I have to add to that is the second time watching it, this movie runs at 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I feel it's a smidge too long. But I also feel the intro with Gwen, I don't know why they did the narrating of her talking about Miles. Because when we got Miles, he also said, I'm Miles Morales. They did it twice, or it should have been like she just talking about herself, but she was talking about Miles the whole time. So when he came on screen and he did it, it's almost like it's repeating itself. So that's the only thing I have to say about the intro with Gwen is that I didn't really need, because they did it a bunch else in the movie for new characters. I didn't need it twice for Miles when he was going to do it later.
And that'll be actually, that's one of my nitpicks of the movie. I feel like they introed everybody too much. I can't remember what dimension it was, but like the Indian Spider-Man, I was like, that's a long intro for this guy. Did it happen? Did they intro every Spider-Man in the first movie?
They did it a lot in the first movie. And I think that could be, but it was by the time you got to the end of the first movie, it was clearly a gag. And so like, I didn't think it was something that was going to necessarily stick around.
I was like, I don't feel like we need this in a sequel
for everybody again.
Yeah. And I understand what you mean, Brian. I feel like if they had Gwen talk about Miles and her connection to him and not have Miles intro himself, I think I would have appreciated that more rather than
let's do this one more time. Like they did
dialogue.
that again, like,
Other scenes for me, anything with the spot in it was just spectacular. And then the scene with I mean, it was still the Gwen scene, but the scene with Jess and Miguel fighting the Vulture and like them all teaming up and working to get the Vulture captured was just like, I was so happy with all of that. I think those were like my top 3 moments of the movie.
I'm going to give you a hot take.
All right.
Jessica Drew.
Yeah.
Spider-Woman, useless to me in this movie. She did absolutely nothing for the movie. She was just there just to have another Spider-Man on the screen for Gwen to have a connection with.
Right, and I feel like they could have done quite a bit more with her in terms of like actually having... I would have liked to see her be a mentor to Gwen and like them go on a couple missions or something. And like,
I think her being pregnant was a bad mistake just due to the fact that you're thinking to yourself, why are you even doing this when you have your husband and your baby you have to think about?
It's got to be a setup for the next one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that they obviously made an intentional choice to make her pregnant, and that's going to play into something. And I think that especially they maybe just needed to get her introduced in this and show that they have a dynamic so that she can have a better arc with Gwen in the next movie.
Right. Because she could be interesting. Right.
Oh, yeah.
We just really didn't get a lot with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and the stuff she had wasn't really stand out.
The only thing I would say about the fight with the Vulture is I know they have to introduce characters, but Vulture is literally Spider-Man can take him out anytime he wants. Why do they need 3 people to fight the Vulture? That was my only nitpick with the whole fight.
Look,
is like
this one had hammer space. He's a whole different.
True.
This one is a much more lethal version.
Come on, 2099 couldn't have done this himself.
Yeah,
but they had to do it to keep the movie going forward.
Mhm.
It was cool because I think they just wanted to do it to make like a cool different art style for the Vulture. Like
Yeah.
have like a nice little thing about
Mhm.
people teaming up together and like losing their minds. But yeah, Ian, what would you say your 3 highlights are?
So I really, really liked the introduction, and then most of the time that they were in Spider-Man India. I like right from the first moment he starts talking, and I immediately was like, "That's Dopinder from Deadpool." But I didn't know going in. Usually, I know all the voices going in, so it's not a surprise. So when I heard him, and I immediately got him, like, "This is awesome," and I was just on board. I thought just his personality was really good. He was just like, "So, like, what do you? You're not the best at all this. Like, this is just easy." It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like I thought
He's
that
like,
was
I don't want to work out too
Yeah.
hard or I'll get too buff.
specifically his introduction when he like that was as much as we were just complaining about redoing the introductions. I thought his was really cool because it was like, yeah, showing about what do you mean? I'm like I do this, that. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was funny how they played into some of like the stereotypes that they're aware of, like even when his quips about like Spot, oh, so you're just gonna come here and learn self-enlightening, like all those kind of quips about that. Like it's just it's not non-bread. Like I thought they
Yeah.
were really good.
This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is.
Yeah, this is where the traffic is. Yeah, I thought that was a really, really good part, and I
Yeah.
didn't expect to like it as much as I did. So that would be a standout moment for me. Like I knew they were going there. I'm like, okay, that'll be a cool thing. And as soon as it started, I'm like, this is a really good segment. So I would give that as number 1. The second thing, probably going to be some overlap here, but just the whole ending with Miles. Like once you start to click into what's happening, like because they weren't really trying to hide it. They tell you right in the thing, he's going to Universe 42. You know that the spider came from 42, but you don't think about it immediately. Like at least I didn't. Like I saw the numbers, but I didn't jump right to that's the wrong spider. But as soon as I saw the universe, I'm like, wait a minute, that was the wrong spider. And you kind of see it coming together. And then you see the interaction he's having with his mom and with Miles, with his uncle. And I thought it was just a really cool take on that whole universe. But like in this like multiverse, if there is no Spider-Man, yeah, his universe would be kind of post-apocalyptic. And I thought that whole segment was just really well done and not like too over the top with trying to be like, and then like there wasn't trying to like throw too many subversions at you. It set it up and then it paid it off well. And just the design of everything, him being Prowler, it was pretty sick.
Speaking of that, real quick, I know you guys haven't watched the first movie in a long time, but do you remember when he first meets Spider-Man and they have their spider sense connect?
Yes.
And the colors that are happening?
Kind of.
Oh,
Miles is green and purple.
yeah.
Oh,
because he's meant to be the
been.
Prowler.
Oh.
And then when he meets Spider-Man, it goes to red and blue because he's now the Spider-Man of this universe.
And in his own, like the one that he's in, he probably would have gone on to be the Prowler after his uncle. Yeah.
Because his uncle is
him and 42 basically just switch roles. He would have been the one to take after his uncle and become the Prowler, and 42 would have like lost his uncle and ended up being Spider-Man. Whoa. I never would have caught that one. Way too long since I saw the first movie. That's an awesome touch. I don't know if I'd say it's a moment. I thought that 2099 was really well done. I liked his character. I liked his design. I like that he believes what he's doing is right, but he's clearly not doing it the right way. But I thought that introducing his backstory where he replaced somebody else and kind of caused one of these like rifts or whatever they're called was a really good way to justify that and to show like why he would be willing to go to such lengths, because he has the guilt of causing it himself, but not wanting to admit that that's his goal.
There was one moment in this movie, me and Ian were talking about yesterday, but I didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to spoil it. But when Miles goes to get the cake and he's rushing home and he's going up the stairwell and putting his outfit, and he's taking off his Spider-Man clothes and putting on his outfit.
Yeah.
They did not have to do that so well.
No, I literally
I was losing my mind.
Me too. I was like, oh, like I'm like audibly moaning in this scene because it was just so spectacular.
Because it's just simple. He's just putting his clothes on. But like we've never seen that done before in that style, and they didn't have to go as hard as they did to make it. There was so much flair and pizzazz. Like the camera was moving, he was going up in a circle, and he was as the one part where he had his pants and his hood on at the same time. I was like, this looks absolutely incredible. It was the standout moment in the movie for me, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go back and rewatch it every time. But that I'm not gonna put that as my 3. But that was the one moment in the whole movie I was like, this is incredible. Like I've never seen somebody do that in a Spider-Man movie, because they can't really do it that way in live action because it's going to cost too much money. But because this movie's so stylish in the way Miles, moves around, I was like, this is insane. Like, it looks so good. It was clean as hell.
That was one of the things I noticed. They were doing some reviews and they were saying that they were leaning hard into like those kind of shots that you just can't do in a different kind of Spider-Man movie. But it's no different for them to animate that versus any other shot. So it's really cool, like that, or like the ones where they have like the upside down skyscrapers, like when they're sitting upside down. It's like it's really cool, and stuff that is super not easy, but like it's no different to do in animation than anything else. But it's really really tough to do in live action.
So my first one, I'm going off of what you just said, Ian. The whole scene with Miles and Gwen swinging through the city and ending upside down on the building. Easily my top 3 moments of the movie. It's just the music in the background. I've been listening to that track since I finished the movie. But like the style of it, like how fast it is, but they're like catching up at the same time. And then everything slows down. And it's the most beautiful looking set piece when the camera turns and Gwen's walking upside down and then she sits down. I'm like, this is absolutely incredible. And then the whole point of, their relationship is that she doesn't want to be with Spider-Man because in every universe, Gwen passes away because of Spider-Man. And then what does Miles do? He says something smooth as hell for her to like grin at. It's like, oh, there can be a first time for that. Like it goes well. But like, that's the one scene. The second scene, I think it's a culmination of the whole movie leading up to it. But when Miles says, I'm going to do my own thing, and he gives 2099 the shoulder touch.
Yeah.
The second time I watched it, I lost my mind because I was so invested the second time because I love Spider-Punk.
He was really good.
He looks absolutely incredible. And the whole thing about him telling Miles to do the palm
that
thing,
was a really good touch.
Use your palms instead of your fingertips. And then he was like, I'm learning something new. It's nice that Miles is still learning, so it's not like, okay, we're just watching like
a pro
Spider-Man do Spider-Man things. And so when he does it, he uses his full palm on his shoulder and he's giving him the speech, and you can see the ripples happening in 2099 suit, and he's just tearing it to shreds. And he's like, I'm tired of people telling me what I can't do. And he's like, I'm gonna do my own thing. It's like in the trailer, it hits okay, but having his whole arc lead up to this point of, you're telling me I can't save my father. It's like, no, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And he just obliterates him. Which I also think, because there was a part of the end credits, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was a frame where they changed 29's costume to white.
No.
And it's referencing the second costume he gets in the comics, where it's like white and red instead of blue and red.
Ooh.
So he might upgrade it to
against
fight Miles later,
power.
Kind of thing. But that could have just been a nod. And the last scene, I think it has to be the entire end universe, only because of how good the world looked in like the rain and everything. But the scene when Miles is swinging to his house and like he's having this mental breakdown in his head, but you're seeing like the Doc Ock tentacles like chase him and like him going through. He's having like this whole in the when he's crossing the buildings and like his uncle and his father are there. Like it's a whole scene, and then like leading up to it, the Scarlet Spider in this universe
looks so good. Yeah.
Perfection.
Yes.
Perfection. It's like the scene when he gets, taken out. It's funny. He's like, oh, something's off with the walls or whatever. And he's like, I gotta go check it out. It's funny, but I'm like, okay, I can do without it. But the scene when it peers through the window and he's doing that one Spider-Man pose from like a comic book, and it's like the rain's on him. I turned to Adrian. I was like, this is the best looking frame of the movie.
It looked real good.
I was like, I love Scarlet Spider so much. But the scene when Miles is looking at Miles, I'm like, okay, this whole ending is insane. So that has to be my third. I will say the ending, though, I don't understand why Peter B. Parker is bringing Mayday at all.
Baby Yoda.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
They're leaving him in the pink getup, the pink
robe.
The robe. The
robe and stuff. And in my head, I was like, this is my one nitpick. It's like, you have to go save your best friend. This kid's the reason why you had the life you had, and you're literally not going into battle. I'm like, I told Adrian, I was like, you should be leaving her with MJ, putting your Spider-Man suit on, hopping out the window, throwing your mask on, and going to save your friend. This kid.
Yeah.
But I think they're also doing it because if the second he puts his whole outfit on, he looks like a regular Spider-Man.
And you need to differentiate him.
So if there's other Spider-Man that look like him, and you have to be able to tell them apart, right?
Yeah.
But like, dude, take your slippers off, take your jacket off, and go save your best friend.
Doesn't have time for that. That's how much a rush he's in.
And like
Yeah.
Mayday, you're gonna put her in super harm's way. Like
Yeah.
at this point in the movie, Spot looks absolutely incredible. By the way,
The
the whole
im-
lead, because he wasn't the villain in this movie.
Right.
The villain was 2099, and Miles' whole journey of like accepting that canon things have to happen because they were setting Spot up for the next movie. But
Mhm.
when he goes full berserk
Yeah.
and he's in that black, like sketchy looking, like it looks amazing. And when he finally goes to Miles' world, it's like, why are you bringing Mayday? You're a bad parent.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I mean,
way too much
that's
danger.
part of his thing. Is he's not super responsible. So.
Yeah. The joke was he's like, don't tell your mom. And she puts her mask on, which was adorable. But I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Get your suit on.
Who knows? Maybe maybe he won't bring her in the next
Yeah,
movie.
maybe
We'll see.
they get there and then they're like, "What are you doing? Send her back."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be actually a really good joke. And then
Yeah.
he just like hops back into the portal, puts her in the
Yeah.
crib, and then comes
Sorry,
back
guys.
without her.
Wasn't thinking.
But then again, it's like a waste of screen time, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It
why
is.
would you go that far? Now, do we want to talk about the chase sequence with the millions
Yeah.
of Spider-Men?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
Because, they said it took 4 years to do, and I absolutely believe it.
Uh-huh.
has it already been over 4 years since the first movie? I didn't even realize that.
2018 was the first one.
Wow,
Wow.
that's crazy.
If I may, the first time I left the theater, I was very disappointed because I did not see my favorite Spider-Man. Literally the epitome of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like he's the sole reason why Spider-Man is popular, that
Mhm.
for the cartoon, as the 90s
Yeah.
Spider-Man show. And like as great as it was seeing Spectacular, and like I was like amped
Yeah.
to see all the other versions, it's like you literally left out the most
Iconic.
popular, iconic one. But then I was thinking, hear me out, I was thinking about the next movie. Because if you guys remember how the movie, the show ends with he was the first one to have a Spider-Versal.
I remember that
Anomaly
happened, but I
happened.
don't really remember the details of it.
And so he was teaming up with the Iron Spider, Scarlet Spider, and a bunch of other Spider-Men to go off against Spider Carnage. But at the end of the show, he goes off with Madam Web, and he's going to
yes.
find the real Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this final movie, they're not going to be able to beat Spot. And the only way for them to fix the canon and to fix the Spider Web,
Uh-huh.
the Spider-Verse, is Madam Web. And who's going to come through the portal with Madam Web? 90s Spider-Man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Christopher Daniel Barnes.
I like it because there's got to be a reason why they wouldn't bring such an iconic, like, as much as I like Spectacular, he was not, like, if you're going to get a cameo from one of the shows in there, it would be him, not Spectacular, to bring in there. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
where is he? That's a pretty crazy theory.
So yeah, back to the chase sequence. Now that I've got my rants
Yeah.
out about not seeing my most favorite Spider-Man and the reason why I'm a Spider-Man fan. I love the cowboy.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, that
The
was
cowboy
that
part,
cool.
and he's like, draw on 3, and he's like 1, and Miles
Yeah.
Webb's, he's like, you didn't do it on 3.
I'm not a cowboy.
The energy, what I loved about it, how it started when 29M trapped him after him going through all the canon and like seeing all the events and showing all the Gwen Stacy's and Uncle Ben's passing away. I like the Andrew Garfield
Mhm.
little cameo there.
Yeah.
Donald Glover's cameo was
Good.
amazing.
Yeah, I
That
love
was
that.
good. Yeah.
When he broke out of the cage that he put in, the shield that he put him in,
From the
'cause
palm
he used his
thing, that
palms.
was such a good touch.
Yeah, the palm thing. Because
Yeah.
did you notice that Spider-Punk was like,
He nodded.
because he doesn't care about rules, right? He's so
He did
anarchy.
like a-
He was giving him
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah,
signal.
he did.
He was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Do the
yeah. He
palms.
wanted him to get
He
out.
was one of my favorite characters. Like when he was like, "How are you cooler underneath the mask?" And if you guys notice, like there was parts when he was in black and white and he was walking, he looked real as hell.
Yeah,
He did.
Like,
Yeah.
Whatever texture they had
Mhm.
him, he looked like he was live action for
Yeah.
a second.
I don't know how they did that. That was amazing.
The part I love the most is when Peter B snatched him
Mhm.
and took him aside
Yeah.
and was trying to like tell him what's happening, and Miles just didn't want to hear it because they were lying to him this whole time. But when Peter B's joke is like, "Oh, I trained him, like this is why he's this good," and then everyone's like, "Oh, you're not a good teacher," and then at the end when Miles is like, "Well, I did lead everybody, all the spider people out to chase me," and then Peter B's like, oh yeah, see, I did teach him well. It's like he thought of this himself. So I just think because Peter B is so on board with like Miles, it's like he's only going there to help him. But anytime Miles does something, he's so proud of him.
Exactly.
You know?
It's that unconditional support from a mentor.
Mhm.
I love their dynamic. I gotta ask you guys. I don't. This was honestly one of my only nitpicks about the movie is that I don't know how I feel about like memes in movies
Or
anymore.
the
Yeah.
pointing one.
Yeah,
I think that
I don't
Did
know.
it just
It
it was
was-
the perfect way to do it.
Yeah. But it would have been better, I think, if they hadn't already used it once in this movie series. Like,
Yeah, because they did in an end credit
Yeah.
scene that we hear the
Mhm.
movie.
That's
before.
right, and they also kind of did it in
No
No
Way
Way
Home.
Home.
No Way Home, and I was like, that's enough of that. And for me, seeing like hundreds, if not thousands, of Spider-Man, although it is like a visually amazing feat for them to do, I was just like, oh, I don't. This part isn't what's doing it for me. The chase sequence was great. Miles breaking out or like escaping and diverting everybody's attention. I thought that was all good. It was tied in really well, like thematically and story wise. When we got to 2099's universe and we saw all the Spider-Man, I was just like, it's not for me. It's not like, that's not like the big thing for me. I think everything else in that movie was more of the wow factor. That was like the low point for me. And then everything picked up after that once we got like more of the tension. But I wanted to ask you guys about that. Like, how did you feel when we got to 2099's universe?
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not someone like I appreciate all of them,
Yeah.
but I'm not someone who needs that. I prefer my Peter Parker, my Peter B, my Miles, my main characters, my
Your core
Gwen,
group. Yeah.
the ones I actually care about. They're only there because it was cool to have them. Everybody chase Miles, and he's the anomaly, whatever. But like,
yeah.
that's not what gets me my blood going.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The stuff with Miles and Gwen at the beginning, the whole ending with Miles in the wrong universe, like 2099 going after Miles, and like the whole story of them. It's like all the rest of the stuff is a nice little tease. Like it's a nice
Yeah.
little, thank you to the fans. All these years
Mhm.
of Spider-Man have gone by. Because most of
Yeah.
them, it's like, were just created for the movie. Some of them are actual costumes, but none of them have voices. So they're just there. So it's cool to see, but I much prefer my Spider-Man, my Spider-Women to be like 1 to 4 max, Because even in the first movie, I thought there was too many characters. Like Penny Parker, I didn't really care for. I mean, they did it just because they wanted all the animation styles to get obviously an Oscar. And like
Yeah.
Peter Porker, I didn't really need him. Spider-Man Noir was one of my favorites, but I need just like two to three, just for ones I can care about. But it was nice. It was cool. The scene was amazing.
It
But
was.
like, that's not the part of the movie that got me invested. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and I at least I'm gonna watch it again. I'm definitely gonna watch it again, but I want to watch it and see what the intent behind it was. Because to me, it was just like that's not
Just some fan
the
service.
wow factor of this movie. It is, yeah, and it wasn't too long of a scene. But anyway, sorry.
I
Ian,
just
go
to
ahead.
say, it was cool, but I don't think that it had any more impact than it would have been if it was like 2099 and 10 other Spider-Man and a bunch of spider drones. Like, I get that they wanted that number of people chasing them, but it didn't, like, having 1,000 different Spider-Men that I don't know who any of them is no different than having a bunch of robots chasing them. It was nice to get some Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, there's a Western Spider-Man. But like it would have had more resonance with me if it was the personal ones that you're used to. If it was just maybe the ones that we already know and another 10 more from different universes that you recognize, and then just a bunch of like drones or something following them to get that, if they really want to have the huge chase.
Although, Ian, I know you would have loved this, but the Lego scene.
Oh, so
that
good.
get a
And I
laugh
was
out of
not
you?
expecting it. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, I didn't expect it to happen at all. And as soon as it came up, I'm like, this is amazing. This is so good. And it fits so well. And like, yeah, they've already done the Lego movies. So they had that whole style like locked in.
You want to know something crazy?
I think
that
I
scene
know
was
that-
animated by a kid, a 14-year-old kid on YouTube he animated the first trailer like that in 3D Lego, and then they reached out to him to animate the scene.
which is just insane.
Yeah. One of the parts I love about the Lego scene is at the very end. I love that J. Jonah Jameson is J.K. Simmons for every universe.
Yes.
It's incredible. But when Peter goes into the stall to change and he's talking to 2099, and then he goes, 29 goes, "Oh, thank you, Peter. You're one of my best."
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's so funny. Like the Lego, of course, the Lego one is one of the best
It had more
crew members
impact
he
than
has.
all the other Spider-Man ones. Like if they want to have a cameo of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, give them a little couple seconds like that, and it's more effective than having the 10,000 of them walking around. To me,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
totally agree.
what are they doing? Because like they were hesitant about giving Gwen the band at the beginning, but like you got a million of them sitting in your
yeah, it
warehouse.
takes
It's
away
like you can't
from.
add one
It's like
more.
really you're that picky about who gets it, but everybody else got one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I think he was hesitant only because
it was because of
if
Miles.
Gwen was, they have the Miles. She has the Miles connection. He doesn't want, her to be around Miles. That's why they're another one of my favorite parts. I'm just gonna go off the top is when she's hunting the Spot and Miles is spying on her, but he's invisible. That whole scene blew my mind. I was like, this is an incredible scene because when they framed them up and there was the holes in the walls from all the explosions and stuff, and they had the two circles that framed them up perfectly. But then she turned around and he like went visible again because he thought she was going to turn around again, but then she walked away. Their chemistry is insane. Like, I mean, they're animated characters, but like,
But the voices
obviously,
still carry it. Yeah.
yeah, the voices and like you care about these characters so much because you've been through it from the first film, and you know how much they want to be around each other. But like, and then Miles, the one thing I would say, I think the conversation with his mom when she lets him go, I thought that was too long. It was a very dull point
Me
in the
too.
movie.
Me
And there
too.
was a couple shots they just held on for like ever. And I'm like, hey, just cut to when she says goodbye because you're really slowing it down.
There were a lot of emotional or supposed to be very impactful scenes in this movie, and it really slowed it down. And I was like, okay, this is where stuff's gonna go nuts, and then we're gonna get the end of the movie. But then it happens again, and then it happened again. I was like, all right, enough of these. I totally agree.
Yeah, because you know why? Because after they grounded him the first time, that the scene on the roof when he's talking to his parents is hilarious, and he's like, "Whatever," and she's like, "Whatever."
Well,
And
yeah.
after they ground him, but then he goes away with Gwen and does this amazing swing sequence, and you get that connection again, and then it goes back to the rooftop to have another. So
Another, yeah.
it goes. You go from the amazing scene of him putting on his clothes to having the parents. So it's kind of like slowing down, and then you get a nice swing scene with Gwen and Miles to pick things back up, and then it drops to a halt for her and Miles and his mom to have this conversation. It's like I get you need to have it, but I feel like it took a while for it to finish. That's my only
Yes.
gripe. That I feel like if they would have chopped off a little bit here and there to cut it down, I feel like it would have made the movie move a little faster.
I agree.
And then the scene, the first time I saw it, Gwen and her father at the very end, we thought that went really slow. But the second time you watch it, it actually goes by really fast. So I can't say that's a negative, but there's just a couple things here and there that kind of, you could have knocked off 10 minutes off this movie.
Yeah. 2 hours 20 is a long time.
So going back to Spot real quick, I love the idea of like, he's losing his spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the real meta joke, they're like, stop talking about your holes.
Yeah,
Like you're making the
yeah.
audience feel uncomfortable kind of thing. But like, I loved the idea of him recreating the black hole and to like try to like suck himself back into it. But I loved how it started from like his core and like it like morphed to the
It
outside of
worked
him.
out. Yeah.
He's changed, right? He took
He's
the
not
villain.
like bumbling.
Yeah, he took the
around.
villain of the week joke and he's like, hey, I'm gonna be a real villain. And like his whole demeanor, he's like just floating like Vecna from Stranger Things, and he does the whole snip snip and he cuts the web and he just floats into it and becomes a demon. Oh, I can't wait for the second. The Spot is such an underrated villain. Like he hasn't been around. He was in the '90s cartoon for one episode, but like the overall
His
idea of Spot as a
power
villain is so
set
cool.
is excellent, just the way it's been used. But it fits this story so well. Like, and by design they wrote it into it. But like, yeah, what better way to have a villain for a multiverse story than a villain whose literal power is the multiverse?
I did like the scene where he was in the void, the white void with all the portals, and he's like, well, let me just look in here, and it went back to like that retro first look of the comic book.
Yeah. Yeah,
It was all like spotty,
Yes.
and then he went to the Lego, and then he went to Venom universe.
yeah, that was a good way to do Easter eggs too. Like kind of like the same as the Lego one at the beginning. If you want to throw all these in, it actually fits within the narrative. He's exploring his powers to move there, and then you get to have these little nods to everything.
The one cameo I loved is the '60s Spider-Man, and he's
The
swinging towards
frame
Miles,
rates,
and he's
yeah.
like, yeah, the frame
Yeah.
rates, but he's like, oh, I missed him, and he's like swinging on nothing. That was a
Yeah,
great
that was
little.
really good.
If you were gonna add anybody, like we talking about everybody just acting like a bunch of robots, put the ones we know for real. Like that one is
Yeah.
hilarious. Like that's
Yeah.
one of the ones you're like,
Just the two static images.
yeah, just one image is like, I'm going. It's like Miles. It was so cool. But I loved the progression of Miles being like a student of the game and then being like clumsy, but like he's cocky at the same time. You know, he has that arrogance to him which was so lovable in the first movie. And, like it came across with his uncle, and he was like, you know, when he's boxing the thing, he's like, what? And he's like, you know, he's like, oh, we're just laying down the groundwork. You know, he's such a likable character, but like in this movie, he's more the master, but he still has that like cocky arrogance of like what we loved about him in the first one. The progression of him becoming his own person and like how Miles he learned about the canon events is the same way I felt when he was in the chair and Peter B webbed him up and he didn't know what to do, and his father was talking to him. That character growth moment there really resonated with how grown up he is dealing with all these decisions that all these Spider-Men are like, you can't do this. And he's like, I don't care, because his father was the one who made him believe he can work his powers in the first place. And I
Yeah.
need to try to do everything to save him. And it's just the character growth is great. Spider-Gwen's, I loved adding a little bit more of her in there because we got a little bit at the beginning in the first movie, but
Mhm.
you got a lot, and the relationship building was great. Peter B, I wish he was in it a smidge more, but what we got of him was amazing
It was. Yeah.
because he's just a nice little like, oh yeah, a friendly face in the. It's like a feel good, you know, when you see your best friend again. It's like, oh yeah,
Exactly.
he's back when he first showed up. I love seeing Spider-Man Noir at the end. The whole crew.
Getting the
Yes.
crew back together was good.
It's tough because it's like how this movie ends. It doesn't feel like there's that much left. You know what I mean?
It's got to start off with you like what's like how Endgame starts, and they within 5 minutes they beat Thanos, but that's not it. Like
Yeah.
there's gonna be some other, because them going to get Miles is not even the main story. Like it's Spot. So yeah, there's so much more, because just because they happen to save Miles from being caught by 2099, they still have the entire Spot issue to deal with.
But I think, hear me out. I think the Prowler is a red herring.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
don't think he's evil.
Oh, okay. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we're just assuming based on the history and him and Uncle and everything. Like maybe what they're
And the
actually
vibe of
doing
the room.
is breaking into like the Sinister Six's criminal organization, because they name drop that. And maybe they're actually planning to do a good heist. That would be a crazy twist.
Because you see at the end, it's like Miles is touching the metal of the chain,
Yeah.
and he's thinking about electrocuting it. But like the way Miles is looking at him, and the way he holds onto that bag, and he's just looking Miles in the face. I mean, they could definitely make him a villain, but I definitely think he's not going to harm him.
Yeah, that would be a twist I would
Like I
not see
think
coming.
there's a thing there. It's like I was supposed to be you, and you're supposed to be me, and there's going to be like this. I think they're going to be a team.
That would be cool.
Right.
You know, something's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a massive brawl.
Right. Because to me, I feel like if Earth 42's Miles, so the Prowler, were to like actually want to harm our
Yeah.
Miles, it just wouldn't make like. Why would you want to harm yourself in another
Yeah,
dimension?
your nephew,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, like what's the purpose of that? Even though, say he is like a rough around the edges bad guy, like why would you still want to do that? Like, what is that? Why not help
Gaming
him
yeah.
figure it out? So
Because we
Yeah.
know they're thieves, right? Because we saw the uncle give his mom money,
Mhm.
right.
And he said, "Don't worry about it, whatever." But like, I think it's a twist.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's evil.
I'd be happy with
Yeah,
that
I would
for
like
sure.
that.
Regardless, if he's not evil, if he's evil,
Well, and because
Yeah.
everything seems evil because it's this ominous dark universe, but the whole universe is post-apocalyptic. So
I think he's
Huh.
just gonna let him off. Like, he's just gonna break the chains. Like, I mean, Miles could do that originally,
Yeah.
but like, I think it's a red herring. That's all I'm going to say with that until obviously
Yeah, we
9 months
get
from now when we get to see the next one. But I do think Madam Web is going to be a huge play.
Yeah, I could see that.
That is one thing I hope for now.
She's the thing that holds everything together, right?
Yeah.
And like they are making a Madam Web movie, so like obviously they're
Sony's on
trying
board
to
with the idea of it.
mesh their
Yeah.
stuff together. It's like in Shattered Dimensions, the game, right? She sends her Spider-Man off to do things because she knows they can handle them because she's psychic. But like she's obviously like in the old cartoon, she was testing our Spider-Man to be the leader of this group to go stop Spider Carnage from like starting a black hole to blow up the entire world. So they're going in. So it's like that whole thing where she can't interfere until it's necessary.
Yeah.
So I hope that's the kind of thing. But like, there's so much that can happen in the next movie. But we're gonna leave it at that. What are your guys' final thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse?
I loved it. I thought it was so fun. 2 hours and 20 minutes is a little long for me. If it was 10 minutes shorter, that would have been spectacular. But overall, I loved it. Brian, when you texted me your first bad experience, I was actually like, oh no.
Yeah. And I didn't
Like,
find out until
what?
after I'd seen it. And I'm like, what do you mean? It was so good. Why did it suck so much? Huh. Yeah.
It's like, are you having a bad day, buddy?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Listen, the people in the theater were just not great.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you this. At the end of the first experience, people were like booing and like being like, what the hell? Like with the cliffhanger. Because they
Yeah,
were a bunch of
really?
immature teenagers.
Mhm.
The second time I watched it, people were clapping and cheering. So like you could tell the difference in the room
Yeah.
because all these teenagers were throwing popcorn, texting on video. Like the two people next to me were arguing over who's holding the popcorn. They're the 13-year-old kids. It's like, okay, I can't focus on this movie. So that's the only reason why I wasn't as invested. But like the second experience, dude, it's just so much more enjoyable as you go through it.
So I know that this has been kind of thrown around online, but I've seen it. But like the comparisons to Empire Strikes Back are very, very fair, and that's my favorite Star Wars movie, depending on the day. And Halo 2 is probably one of my favorite Halos. Those both also just end on great cliffhangers, and I thought that was a really awesome way to end the movie because it just I just want to see the next one so much more. And even just the way that the movie was set up, like when you have a trilogy, you got to play into that. Like the first one gets the story started. The third one's going to have to close it out. But that middle one is when you really get to expand and explore the characters and the world and get so much more involved. And I think that this was an excellent example of like that sequel, the middle child sort of in the trilogy. And I thought it was really, really good. I mean, I'm super excited for the third, but I'm probably going to end up liking this one more just because it is that second one where you get to really dig deep and kind of like explore what makes him who he is and that kind of stuff. And I thought it was awesome.
I would agree with both of you. It's just like Miles' character is so enjoyable. It's like as much as everybody loves Peter, this version of like Miles is, I've read all the comics with Miles, but like this version of Miles just hits so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And like his growth, he go like the scene at the very end when he's talking to his mom, his quotes mom, and he was like, I took them all on, and he's like, I won. You feel so proud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, I did it. He's not going to let anybody stand in what he believes in. And it's such a great role model to have for a main character. I'm not worried about the final movie because it's in great hands, but like this could be the best trilogy in a long, like forever.
Agreed.
Like, you know what I mean? Like not to overhype this movie because it was like a solid 8 out of 10. We all had some nitpicks about it, but like going from the first movie to this movie, seamless. If you were to watch them back to back, oh my God, it would be an incredible
You would think
experience.
that they were, made a day apart.
And like, I'm telling you, we should be watching the first, the second, right before we see the third, all in sequence and just how the story progresses and how it ends, because I can't wait for this to end so I could just watch it all over again.
Yeah.
Which, is something not many people want to do, right? But like to experience it, like I watched the first one like 7-8 times. And this one I've already seen twice. I've watched it a bunch more, but like to want to sit down and watch all 3 in a row, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
And I think it caters to how well the style is, to how enjoyable, to how free the animation is, to how creative there's 3 directors on these movies. Like you need that many people
to manage
in order to helm what we just saw, right? It was in a massive scale.
Like we might not have had that stairwell changing scene without all of them allocating work and roles to each other, because man, that was like you said, like that they didn't need to go that hard with that scene. They didn't need to go that hard with most of
every
their
scene.
scenes.
They
but
didn't need to go that hard with Spider-Punk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
could have just done a little bit of the newspaper thing. Yeah. Like, but then it just
Yeah.
was so
They said they didn't
intense.
figure it out till like months ago. It took them 2 years to figure it out. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But like they've set the standard, right? The sky's the limit for the third one because they've already figured out everything else.
Yep.
And they
Yep.
took that extra time. It took 5 years for this movie to come out. I mean, obviously they pushed it a year, but like they needed that time.
Yes.
And now, I don't know if you guys saw this. It was supposed to come out March 29th of next year, the third one, but they took that date off of their Twitter page.
Oh.
So I think they want to be cautious because they want to have enough time to finish
do
it.
yeah.
So I'm not surprised if it goes till April or May.
for sure.
I would just give it a full year,
Yeah.
like, because I know the directors are exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, they said themselves that it's going to be nice to have a little bit of a break. They're going to take some time off, but like I would just let them finish the movie. Like, don't rush it.
It's ready when it's ready.
Don't make us wait too long. you
Yeah.
know, there's a give and take. Don't rush it, but don't make us wait.
We've been talking about a lot of movies that we all really like, or TV shows, and we've been talking about like the passion that we see in the work that's created, and I think this is one of those examples. Like there's just so much love for Spider-Man as a character, but also the history that comes with him, and the different iterations of Spider-Man, and the amount of people that enjoy Spider-Man in all its iterations, and seeing the different art styles come together all in one place because we can do that now. It's so fun and to see where we've come, and it's set the bar for a lot of new animation. I've yet to see Puss in Boots, but
It was great.
having those sort of like extra animated lines in the animation comes from these guys, like, and it's just such a good progression of technology that we have now.
It's like the only downside to this, guys, is that every standard animation movie looks so dull. And it's like, you don't want to push the third one so much that it's like, just like, because this one had scenes where I was like, okay, this is too much to look at. So you kind of want to keep it tame. Like the first movie still looks beautiful, but the second movie looks absolutely insane. So I think I don't want there to be a time where like animation looks dull because they're not doing
this.
What we've already peaked, right?
Exactly. And I think it's just going to take a new thing.
And I think the next testament is going to be the Ninja Turtles movie in August.
Yep.
Because it's doing similar, but I think it's doing more pencil work rather than the cleanliness of Across the Spider-Verse.
Exactly.
Before we end, I do want to say I love Miles' costume.
Yeah. It was good.
Every scene
Lean from the armpits.
Yeah, the whole beginning scenes when he's like with his father and they're like doing the mission together, which is hilarious. And when they were having that conversation, he's like, "Why don't you just get off the kid's ass?" It's like, but the suit looks. I love big eyes on suits, and that's why I love Andrew Garfield's suit.
Yep.
But this whole costume looks seamless and it's crisp and it looks perfect. But I'm wondering, because it's ripped, right? How it rips, like usually you have like the eye patch on like different spot. How it's ripped is so badass. It's just all the shoulder like it's showing. So I wonder if you'll get a new updated suit in the third one to kind of take on whatever's going to happen. But I'm so glad Miles is getting shine, and how they portray him is a wonderful character arc. And I think it'll stand the test. It'll be someone's new favorite Spider-Man, right? Like I have the 90s for myself. Like everybody loves Peter Parker, but like Miles Morales, he's catching up quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
we have some friends and they have young kids, and Miles is their Spider-Man, and I'm just like, yes.
Yeah. And then even Spider-Gwen, like she has such a big arc. Like Ian, your sister's kids.
Yeah. Amelia like loves Ghosty. That's what she calls her, Ghost Spider. Like, that's her spider person.
And it's so great that these movies and like can give someone their own version of Spider-Man. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, Miles is getting up there for me.
I know.
So depending on how well this movie goes, like I love Peter B. He's so good, and like different iterations, like Spectacular Peter Parker. But like Miles, he's creeping. So we all can't wait for the next one. It'd be great if we can all see it together. So hopefully we can manage to pull that off. That'd be an awesome experience. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed our take on Across the Spider-Verse and hope you had similar feelings to us. I know everyone around the world is loving it. And I'm glad people are loving it because I'm glad my favorite character is getting movies like these. And they're so well made with love and care. This has been 2 Hours on a Sunday. I'm Brian.
I'm Nick.
I'm Ian.
And thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys later.